Hi, Mackenzie. Thank you for showing up too. I'm going to wait just a couple of minutes until exactly 3:30, and then we'll get started, okay? I want to make sure that everyone knows to stick around until the end to see if you're a lucky winner. They tell me they're going to give away a couple of books, and we did this fun Lori's favorites things, which I'm kind of drugged because of the broken elbow, so I hope it's all my favorites. Timothy Oliphant's included. He's a favorite. So I hope you stick around to see if you win the raffle bag of Lori's favorites, okay? I'm going to try, I'm having to use my left hand here to try to work this thing because of my, you can see my right elbow's kind of gimpy right now. Hi, Val. Okay, so Val asked, she said she loves the series. Thank you so much, Val. I appreciate it. And she wants to know if there's more books in the series and what's coming up next. So there's actually 4 books in the series. The first one, of course, was Logan and Run the Risk. And then we have Reese, who's out right now, and Bear It All. And then after that will be Rowdy's story. And I know a lot of you, after you read Reese's story, Rowdy did his best to take over that book. He tried his darndest. So he was immediately next. And his book is done and scheduled for it's September or October. And then I was working on Dash's story until I broke my elbow. I have Dragon software now to try to see if I can finish Dash's book using Dragon software, so wish me luck on that. But his will be the last. And in Rowdy's book, you meet a secondary character who's a fighter. And so when I finish up the this Love Undercover series, then my big plan is to go back to the fighters for a little bit and do a few more of those. You'll meet Cannon in Rowdy's book. So, Prairie Dawn says, wow, what happened? I was, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before that, my husband and I were at our lake house, and I had just gotten out of bed. He was up before me, and he said, wow, it must have really gotten cold because there's frost on the neighbor's roof. And I didn't pay any attention. And you guys know how I'm always taking pictures of sunrise and sunset for you. Well, I saw a beautiful sunrise coming up over the lake. So before I even had a drink of coffee, I stepped outside to take that picture, and our whole deck was just a solid sheet of ice, and I slipped, and this pointy bone on your elbow literally broke in half, and the part that broke kind of went up my arm a little bit. So they had to go in and move that piece down and then put a screw in to reattach it. So I know you're all going and gasping for me because, yeah, it was terrible. So I'm going to be laid up for a while, so hopefully I'll be able to use that Dragon software to finish the next book. So thanks for asking. Kathy C. asked, how is it? It's not hurting too bad. It's just a huge inconvenience. I really want to be here at my desk writing, and I just can't do that right now. I can answer emails using Siri on my iPhone. Thank God for Siri. But actually I have to call Verizon and up my ante on that because I've used up all my minutes on it. So, Val, thank you. It's always nice to meet people who enjoy the work. I have, Mackenzie asked how Dragon works. I have no idea. I had my computer guy come out and set it up the day after surgery. So basically I came down and I have a booklet here and the headset, and he told me when I'm not drugged, which I'm not. I only took pain pills for like a day and a half, but he said when I'm ready, he'll come over and explain to me how to use it. I usually have my playlist going and I play my music really loud while I write, and apparently that won't work while I'm doing Dragon because all my music would be showing up on the page too. So hopefully I'll be able to figure that one out. Hi, Nikki Grice. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Like I say, just frustrated. I'm not an idle person and I don't really like being idle. Minna DeCaro. She says, hi, Lori, I'm so excited to be in this chat with you. You're a legend. Well, I'm a legend for slipping and falling on ice in April in Ohio, maybe. Thank you. And Novel Strumpet said she can't wait for Rowdy's story. Did you see his cover? Oh my gosh, I love his cover. And it looks like Rowdy. It looks like he's kind of a badass. He's sensitive, but he's a toughie for sure. He's a troublemaker. And I'm really looking forward to you guys seeing his book also. And Novel Strumpet also mentioned the special guest in Bear It All. So those of you who read the Men of Honor series, you probably remember Trace. He was the second book, Trace of Fever. He makes a little cameo, a couple of cameos in Bear It All. And I was real unsure about it when my characters just kind of do their own thing, and he kind of just showed up on the page. And I kept thinking that he might, because Alice was in Trace of Fever, and she's the heroine in Bear It All. So she and Trace had such a unique relationship. I kept thinking Trace might show up. And when he did, it surprised me, but it kind of surprised Rowdy and Reese also. But it was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy that when he's there. Let's see here. Mackenzie M says, what are some songs on my playlist? Oh gosh, I have a couple hundred on there. I really, really like Korn. Korn's one of my favorites. Just about anything by them. Kid Rock is my favorite. I probably have every song Kid Rock's ever done. Some Marilyn Manson. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. You know, I like stuff that's loud and with a hard beat, and you know, you can kind of bounce around in your chair a little bit while you're listening to it. So Jagged Otter said, hello Lori, I'd love to know how you create your male characters. Are they based on anyone you know? Luckily my husband's not down here. I peeked to make sure he wasn't standing at the top of the stairs. You know, at heart they're all my husband. Like me, he's a 50-something guy. Neither one of us are cover models, so he's not the guy on the cover, just as I would never be the person on the cover. Luckily, we've aged together. We met the third day of our sophomore year of high school and have been together ever since. And the end of June, we'll celebrate 35 years together. And I think when I broke my elbow, it hurt him worse than it did me. He's really been looking after me. But at heart, they're all him. Their sense of humor and their nobility and their sense of responsibility and how they care for family and children and pets, and just that innate sense of honor that they have, that would be my husband. So at heart, they're all him. Now like me, he's not lived an exciting life. He's not been a mercenary. He's you know, never been to war. You know, he's lived we've both had a very blessed, ordinary life. But I like to think it's the meat of the person, you know, and they're all him. So Val Pearson is gasping for me. Thank you. I know it was painful. You know, when I first fell, I kept thinking it can't be broken. It has to be okay. Yeah, there's just no other option, because with my schedule, the way that I write, there's no way that I'm going to be laid up for 2 months with a stupid elbow. You know, but I sat around for a couple of hours and I iced it and finally decided, yeah, I'd better go to the hospital. We drove home from the lake and we dropped my little girl dog off at home first. And I was just keeping it very still. You know, I was afraid to move it because every time I moved it, it hurt. And then we went up to the emergency room and they did a couple of x-rays. And I really bruised up and banged up my shoulder and my wrist and my fingers. You know, basically my whole... When we old people fall, we fall hard, apparently. So I banged everything up. But luckily, the only thing broken was my elbow. So Shelley Mead says, which one of your books would you want made into a feature film? Do you have a dream cast in your mind if that were to happen? You know, my dream cast is always Timothy Oliphant for anything and Emma Stone for anything. I think he is just like walking sex. He is so gorgeous and he's so talented. And... did anybody see him in A Perfect Getaway? That's one of my favorite things that's in the raffle basket for you guys. Best movie ever for a hunky guy. Timothy Oliphant all the way, and I just think Emma Stone is the most darling person ever. So she could play any one of my characters, and I think she'd do an awesome job. As far as which one of my books it would be, I don't know, Causing Havoc, the first fighter book I ever did, I always thought would make a really good movie, you know, especially since the MMA and UFC is kind of hot right now. And actually When You Dare, I always thought would work out well. So it would be a dream come true if they didn't demolish it. You know, so often when they make books into movies, there's nothing of the book left. So I would hate to see that happen. But okay, Chelly Reeds says, hi Lori. Hi Chelly. Am I pronouncing that right? Chelly, Chelly. And she said, I listen to Korn when writing. Yes, I do. I love listening to Korn when I'm writing. And Kid Rock and Marilyn Manson and some Janis Joplin and some Tom Petty and I don't know. I don't really have a real... I don't know bands as much as I do songs, so my kids are the ones that will hook me up a lot of times when I say, I heard this song I liked, who's it by? And they'll tell me. What do I like to eat or drink? Christine Archiadacano? I hope I'm saying that right. Wants to know what I eat and drink while I'm writing and reading. Well, I almost always have a Lipton green tea. That's one of my favorites. I love Mountain Dew, but I can't drink a bunch of Mountain Dew. So I try to avoid that. It's coffee in the morning, and then I switch to my green tea. And I love to snack on crackers a lot. Reese's wheat crackers and cheese and grapes are a big favorite. I munch a lot while I'm writing. So I'm kind of a grazer. The whole time I'm writing, I'm feeding my face too. Nikki Grice says, whoops, I lost you guys. My screensaver came on. Nikki Grice says, when you are writing, do you ever, you moved. Sorry, I can't see here. When you are writing, do you ever start to feel like your characters are real, like a brother or son or secret lover? Sorry, I think my husband's outside and my phone's ringing. We'll just ignore it. Yeah, you know, the characters, I don't mistake them for, I have one brother who's a hoot, and I have 3 sons who I love more than life. So no, I don't mistake my characters for them. But they do begin to feel real to me, and they kind of take on their own personas. I would say more like a good friend, you know, someone you know that you're close to. And they kind of do their own thing, and I don't generally try to guide them at all. I pretty much let my characters just do what they want to do. It works out better for me and for them. The few times I've ever tried to really guide them in any way, it didn't really go well. You know, I got frustrated with the book, and I had to go back and kind of take pages out and then turn them loose again. So it's really difficult for me. The process for a book is generally that I tell my editor what the book will be about, and they'll create a back cover blurb based on that, and then I write the book. And very often, my editor, Margot Lipschultz at Harlequin, and before her, Cindy Wong at Berkeley, and before that, Kate Duffy at Kensington, they would have to go and rewrite the blurbs because I don't really know what the book's going to be about until I write it, until the characters do their own thing. So I just, you know, I sit down and I start writing, and they just tell me what's right next and what to do and how it's going to go, and that's the process that works for me. It's different I have so many people write me and ask me, you know, to say that they want to write but they can't seem to get started, and they want to know how I do it. And it would do me no good to tell you how I do it, because everyone has to do it their own way. It's a very individual process to figure out what works for you. I don't know any other writer who writes the way that I write, and I think that's probably true for every author. You have to do it the way that works for you. Let's see. Mena DeCaro says, sensuality is always a great asset of romance novels, and it works wonderfully with suspense. Many authors complain that writing love scenes is the most difficult part. Is it the same for you? How do you prepare yourself to create that wonderful chemistry between your characters? Well, again, I don't really prepare myself. You know, I keep noticing my really flat hair. I'm sorry. I hate this having one arm. I can't. Doing makeup and hair was extremely difficult left-handed when I'm right-handed. I don't really try to get in the mood or prepare for that. The characters tell me when they're ready. It'll be funny that some books, you know, by the 3rd page they're having sex, and some books, you know, I'm 150 pages into it and they haven't even kissed yet. And that's because it's entirely up to the characters. I don't try to guide them. I don't try to tell them when they should or shouldn't do anything. You know, every character is an individual, and every plot is individual, and so it happens for me, it happens when it should happen, not when I think it should happen. So it's nothing that I have to prepare for, and it's no more difficult. The most difficult part of a book for me is the ending. I have a very hard time with that last line that kind of says da-dum-dum, you know, and that you know it's over. But other than that, no one part is more difficult than another, only because the characters do the work, not me. I apologize, I have to take a drink here real quick, and it takes me a minute. being one-handed. Okay, let's see. She said, Novel Strumpet says, for people just starting out and thinking of writing books with police, firemen, etc., how did you go about reaching out to those professionals for research? Oh, I use Facebook. If you're on my Facebook at all, you've seen me post on Facebook and say, are there any nurses in the house? Are there any firemen in the house? Are there any policemen in the house? And I've had people hook me up with the best contacts ever. And to me, that's much, much easier than walking cold, calling a police station and saying, I'm writing a book, can I do a ride along and pick your brain for answers? I've traveled out of my state to meet people that I met on Facebook who were giving me research answers rather than have to go into my own community where people know me. That's always a little bit uncomfortable for me. So it was easier for me to work through Facebook to do that. Now that said, I recently got my conceal carry, not because I plan to conceal carry, but because I was writing a lot about people with guns, and I'd never really handled a gun. I didn't have a gun. I'd never really handled a gun. I didn't know anything about guns. So by taking that class, I was able to educate myself and be more familiar with holding a gun, the process of dropping the clip and putting the clip back in and clearing the chamber of a bullet and knowing those things. We practiced, I did combat training, so we practiced left-handed and right so that I could see. This is the bizarre part. You guys are going to love this. The character I'm writing right now, she's if you met her in the first book, it's Lieutenant Peterson, and she just dislocated her elbow. And in the process of writing that, I broke my elbow. So my oldest boy teased me that was just getting into my work a little bit too much. I mean, what kind of weird fate is that while I'm writing her, I was already 100 pages into the book, and she broke her elbow early on, or dislocated it rather. But it really gives me insight into how she would feel having to hold her gun in her other hand and how she would have to do things. So it's kind of neat, that it just happened that way. But anyway, so that's the way that I do research. I always try to actually do my research. I ask as many questions as I can, and then I actually try to do some part of it just to have a good feel for it. Nikki Grice says, I love that you let your characters do what they want. I love that you are so in tune with your characters, or that my characters just kind of crowd in there and invade my brain, and they just won't give me any rest until I let them do what they want to do. That's more the case. There have been times where I didn't think I would be writing a character. I didn't plan a character to have their own book, and the characters more or less would insist, and they wouldn't leave me alone until I gave them a story. Sean, Casey's younger brother from the Buckhorn Brothers, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the here's the most recent one from my bookcase right there behind me. The Buckhorn Brothers, in the last one, which I didn't see real quick, it's Buckhorn Ever After, I think, is Casey's story. Casey has a younger brother named Sean, and I didn't really want to go back and visit the Buckhorns, but Sean, for years, has not left me alone. He's bugged me to death. And so that book will be out in June. We just got the cover for it just the other day, and it's an okay cover. I'm not crazy about it. You guys tend to like these hairless muscle men more than I do. I like my guys to have some hair on their bodies. So I think the readers will probably like the cover a lot. And it'll be Sean Hudson's story, just because he was a character that would not leave me alone. And that book, it's called Animal Attraction, and that'll be out in June, and all the proceeds from that book go to the Animal Adoption Foundation. All of the Buckhorns had pets, and so of course Casey will have a pet. Let's see. One Jewel says, how do you choose the settings for your stories? Are they based on places you have been? Actually, I make all that up because I don't want to have to be held to facts. So I don't want someone to say, well, there's actually a street light on that corner, or it would take you 20 minutes to get from that restaurant to the jewelry store, and I had it written as 5. I don't want anybody to bug me with pesky facts of locations. I have enough problem keeping other facts straight. So when I write, it's always a completely made up area. Now, it might be influenced sometimes. Tony Blake and I both spent a lot of time on a lake in Williamstown, Kentucky when we were younger. We didn't know each other then. We didn't find that out till we were older, that we had both gone to that lake. But so a lot of the times when I write lakes, the atmosphere of the lake is based off of the lake that I grew up around. But it's not factually that lake. It's more just the ambiance of it, so that I can understand the lake atmosphere. Let's see. Val Pearson says, wow, love relationship stories. Love you and your husbands. Thank you. My husband just came downstairs. He's down here in case I need any help with anything, because he knows I've got my broken wing here and, might suddenly need a tissue or something. So he's very protective. I had to get after him the other night because I couldn't take the pain medicine. It would make me sick at my stomach. So I would wake up like at 1 o'clock in the morning and want to get up. But then if I went to get out of the bed, he would want to get up with me. For some reason, he thought since I had a broken arm, I would fall down the steps, like my legs wouldn't work correctly. And he didn't want to take a chance on me falling again. Oh, I mean, plus, I'd been put to sleep for the surgery and all that. He's going to grouse at me over there. But so he didn't want me to get up by myself. But then I would not want to get up. I'd lay there miserable, wanting to get up, but I wouldn't get up because I didn't want him to get up. So finally, I kind of just woke him up in the middle of the night and said, I'm getting up, and you're not getting up, and you're staying in the bed, and that's that, And so he told me the next day that he thought about it and realized I was right, that he wouldn't want me to get up in the middle of the night either. So, but I'm sleeping okay now. So he's a good guy. Let's see. Tessa99 says, who or what was your biggest influence to become an author? Tessa, I really don't know. When I was sick one time, my sister brought me over a bag of romance novels, and I had never read romance novels. I had never really read much of anything because I didn't like reading, because all the material they gave you in school was always really depressing. Newspapers were depressing. None of it was entertainment to me. Movies were entertainment. So my sister brought me over these romance novels, and I was instantly hooked. And I remember a book. I have no idea who the author is or what the title is, or I can't even see the cover, but I know the woman, it was historical, and she had a miscarriage on the side of the road, and some duke had to stop and help her, and just the level of intimacy involved and having to help someone through a problem like that totally intrigued me, and I was hooked. And I probably spent a couple of years just gobbling up romance novels, and then I decided I wanted to start writing my own. So I would say that one author was probably the one that really made me want to write. Some of my favorite authors, especially when I first started writing, would be Linda Howard and Catherine Coulter, Joanna Lindsay, Julie Garwood. They're still some of my favorites. More recently, I really love books by Jill Shalvis and Aaron McCarthy, and I recently read some young adults by Katie McGarry that would blow your socks off. If you haven't read them yet, you have to read these books. The first one was Pushing the Limits, and the second one was Dare You To, and just really, really phenomenal writing. I didn't think I would really be into young adult, but she's got a way about her. So just about anything by Jill Shalvis and Aaron McCarthy, too. I think they're both really sexy, fun writers. Let's see. Chelly Reed says, who reads your books first, or who is your first reader for each of your books? Well, when I finish writing them, usually the first thing I do is send them simultaneously to my agent and my editor. My agent is Karen Solom with Spencer Hill, and my editor is Margot Lipschultz with Harlequin. And often around the same time, I send them to a really good friend of mine who lives in California, Shanna Schwer. I don't know if Shanna's watching, but hi, Shanna, if she is. And Shanna will check them over for specific things for me, like repetitious words, or just, typos that I have in there. Sometimes she'll send me a thing and say, did you mean it to say this, and put a little question mark. So she doesn't tamper with content at all. She just helps me, because it's really hard after you've read your own work so many times to catch typos and things like that in it. Whenever I can, Shanna reads them before I send it off to my editor, but often I'm cutting it so close to the wire that I have to send it out at the same time. So I don't really have early readers. Shanna's a good friend who knows not to tamper with voice, and then my editor and my agent. So Christine, I wish I knew how to pronounce your last name. Diacano says, what would you say is the most overused word while writing? Then seems to be a big one, you know. He was walking down the street, and then he went into the grocery store, and then he went down the aisle. I can't think of a good example, but then seems to be a problem word. I know it is for me. I'm forever trying to make sure I don't overuse then. But there's a lot. I remember one time Shanna read a book for me, and I had the word rote, R-O-T-E, and there about 6 times. So that's where she's good for catching those repetitious words for me. Janine Elizalde, I don't know. I hope I got that close, at least close. Thank you very much. She said, very fun to read. Thank you. VL Grossman says, I like my men to have some hair too. Thank you. Me also. I don't get this fad with these guys that are shaved slick like little babies. And not only that, you have to figure, I want my guys to be doing something worthwhile, not spending hours in the bathroom grooming themselves. Chest hair, to remove all that body hair is going to take a little while. And when I try to picture a guy in the bathroom lathering up his chest to shave it, it's just not an appealing image to me. Plus, I just think the hair on there looks much nicer. Shelly Meat says, are those all the books you've written behind you? Are you in the room? Yeah, this is where I write. This is the desk where I write, right here. And you can't see it, but right ahead of me is the view of my pond. I send you guys pictures of my pond a lot too that I post on Facebook. And I don't know that these are all of my books, but it's many of my books. And when I have family over or friends, they're allowed to shop on that shelf. As long as I have 10 copies on there, they're welcome to take what they want. If I get down to 10 copies, then they should leave those books alone. But if they say, my niece was over here. We had a birthday party for my mother-in-law Saturday, who turned 80. Lovely lady. And my niece was here, and she wanted a couple of my dirty little books, which always insults me. I hate when they say that, but she's a young girl. And she wanted them for a teacher who she said was a reader. And I told her, walked her down here and told her to take what she wanted. Unfortunately, I couldn't sign it for her, but she was welcome to take a few. Doesn't bother me. Nikki Grice says, don't worry one bit about your hair. You look as, no, I don't, Nikki, but thank you. Gosh, it's just been, I had my husband try to put my hair in a ponytail for me, and he couldn't quite manage it. Man could do anything, but apparently can't put hair in a ponytail. It was almost hilarious to watch. He's been on double duty helping me with a million other things. So, we had the big joke about trying to get my bra on. He said he remembered taking them off was a whole lot easier than trying to get one on. And there's just no way. I can't, because I'm down to one. I can't zip and snap. I'm having to wear pull-up pants, like a little kid, because I can't snap and zip right now. But thank you, Nikki. You're very kind. Mina DeCaro says, you are a prolific writer, Lori. Among all the series books characters you have written, do you have a literary darling? Do you mean like one that I like more than others? I tend to like the guys that are a little bit on the jerkier side, for the Men of Honor series, I liked Trace the best. And I know he pushed the hardest, and I know he came across as the most dominant. But I think I like to see those guys dig a hole for themselves and then have to dig their way out. So I really liked him. Book here. In this reissue of my Watson Brothers, if no one's read Sam is one of my all-time favorite guys ever. He has a book called My House, My Rules, and I thought Sam was a hoot. When I wrote Sam, I had made up my mind I wasn't going to hold back at all. Whatever Sam wanted to do, Sam could do, and Sam wanted to do a lot. So I kind of just turned Sam loose and let him be as much of a macho, take charge, jerk of a guy as he wanted to be. But he always had reasons for being a jerk. He always had a better purpose in mind for when he did things. He wasn't just a jerk to be a jerk, because he's actually a really, really good guy. But he was trying to scare off this younger, bubblier girl that he didn't want to stick around. But she kind of got into it too, so she didn't really scare off. But that whenever people ask me to recommend one of my books, Sam's story is one that I always recommend. Let's see here. Sorry, trying to do this left-handed takes a little bit of a trick. Well, and I should also say that Causing Havoc was one of my favorite stories. I think because I'm such a big fighter fan, I love the UFC, I love MMA. So Causing Havoc being the first fighter book I wrote was a huge favorite of mine. And another big favorite was When Bruce Met Sin. And I don't know if anybody read that. That was kind of from the Visitation series. Keep jumping up and leaving my chair here, but here's When Bruce Met Sin. And this book has a little bit of a story to it because Harlequin had turned this book down back when I was with them because I had written the sister story for Harlequin. That was in fantasy. And I think that was reissued not too long ago. And that was Brandy's story, and then she had a sister named Shay. And Shay, I wanted to be a prostitute who hooks up with a preacher. And Harlequin said either she can be a prostitute or he can be a preacher, but it can't be both. And you have to understand, this was back a while ago. So what you as readers liked back then was different. Harlequin's always been on the pulse of what their readers like. So I'm sure they were right for the time. So I didn't write it, but then I later wrote that story for Kensington. And then I kind of wrote, where he thought she was a prostitute and she wasn't. She thought he was a preacher and he wasn't. And then that led me to When Bruce Met Sin, where she is a prostitute and he is a preacher. And I think because Sin broke my heart in this book and Bruce was such a great guy, that's always been one of my favorite books also. I don't necessarily think it was one of the readers' favorites, but it was one of mine. Let's see, Passion for Fiction said, how long does it take you to finish writing one of your novels? Do you ever start an idea and don't finish it? No, I never start an idea and don't finish it because if I'm not really, really driven to finish it, I don't start it. I wouldn't do that. But Alan, could you open a window for me? I'm getting really warm over here. Sorry, I'll put my husband to work here. How long it takes me depends. Obviously, Dash's story is going to take me a while because of this stupid, being incapacitated here for a while. Thank you, that's good. I had planned to finish that book by June. Now I've already been a week away from it, so I don't know how long it'll end up taking me. I guess it depends on if I can figure out how to use this Dragon software and how good I am at telling my books instead of writing them. But in general, I think it probably takes me a month or less to write a novella, and 2.5 months maybe if everything goes well for me to write a single title. So I'm scheduled generally for 2 novellas and 2 single titles a year. And I really, really want to find some time to do another L.L. Foster book. And I don't know if any of you ever read L.L. Foster. That's just me writing not as romance and more, there's still romance. And the second book in my L.L. Foster series won Amazon's #1 romance pick, which blew my mind because I didn't know it was that romantic, but it had a lot more blood and gore, bad people doing bad things. And I just, it's kind of horror's my favorite genre. But there was still a romance in it. So I'd really like to get back and do another one of those. This probably puts a kink in the works, though, with this stupid arm. So, let's see. And of course, that always varies depending on what's going on in my life. If you've got anything, a new grandbaby born or something, it'll throw things off. Val Pearson says, through all of your research for all of your books, what are you the most impressed with when it comes to what you've learned? Gosh. If I had time to think about that, I'm sure I'd come up with something interesting. I'm always impressed with everything everybody knows. Like I say, my husband and I married right out of high school, and we've always lived kind of a middle-class, safe life, so there's not a whole lot that I know outside of raising my kids and being a wife and sister and mom and pet owner, lots of pets. I do know, like Catherine Mann. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Catherine Mann. Her husband's a military man. I'm always so incredibly impressed with anyone in the military who gives to our country in that really, really selfless way. And I mean that for the person who serves and the person married to the person who serves. And as a mom, to the parents of the person who serves, because I think it takes an entire family to get behind someone to be able to do that, to go to war for our country and to take your time away and to know that you maybe wouldn't make it through that tour. So I'm always really, really impressed with that. Anytime I have to do military research, it blows me away what people know and what they can face and not be too afraid of, that they can be so brave. In my Men of Honor books, researching human trafficking, what some people survived and what they came out of and what they were able to do with their own lives. I researched a lot of people who had been victims of human trafficking, and it just amazes me. When I broke my elbow, I just kept thinking about the people in Boston who'd lost limbs. So obviously a broken elbow is a trip. It's nothing. It's, a little blip in your timeline that doesn't mean anything. And I try to look at life that way. When I read about, I'm sitting here writing books about human trafficking and profiting from it. And yet there are people who actually went through that. I've had such an incredibly blessed life. I mean, just unbelievably blessed. That you meet someone you want to be married to and you're in love with for the rest of your life on the third day of your sophomore year of high school. I've had 3 sons who are really healthy, nice, good-looking, do well, have good jobs, proud to, you can be proud of them as young men. I've got 2 incredibly adorable grandchildren and a third on the way. I've never had to go hungry. I've never had to be without shelter. So I think when you do research and you read about people who've had real hardship, that's the thing that amazes me the most. And a lot of times I don't even find that out in research. I have a book come out and someone writes me and tells me of an experience they had, and that my books in some way made them be able to take a different view on something and somehow gave them a little bit of peace. It's just an astonishing thing to me. Okay, let's see. It says, hey, BookTrib members, only 30 minutes left to ask questions and to make comments. So I guess it's 4:07. That was probably 7 minutes ago. Kathy C. says, how do you get the names for your characters? Oh, it's this real scientific way where if I'm at the movies and I see a name I like, I put it into my iPhone, and when I come home I put it on a list, and I literally have a list on the desktop of my computer that says names. Names don't really mean anything to me. I try just not to reuse them because I've done that a few times. Very stupid of me, I know. I'll reuse a first name or a last name that I forgot that I'd already used. Sometimes in a pinch, I'll go to Facebook and I'll steal one of your names. I'll just go down my Facebook wall and say, okay, that's a good first name and that's a good last name, and I slap those suckers together and that's the name. I don't really care about names. It doesn't matter to me. I try to get all the rest of the stuff right. So it's not a big deal for me. That's why you'll see some of my characters have unique names and some have very ordinary names. So, Teresa Redding says, interesting that a book that wasn't right in earlier years is more mainstream now. I guess it pays to take note of all ideas. It's very true, Teresa, but part of that too is when I was with Harlequin at that point, I think you're talking about the When Bruce Met Sin story. At that particular time, I was writing category for Harlequin too, Harlequin Temptations. And then when I moved to Kensington and I was doing single title, there is so much more freedom in a single title than there is in a category book, especially for back then. I think in today's market, the category books sometimes are every bit as out there as the single titles. But back then, the categories still had a very niche market that they had to be in. And I've always been kind of what is the word? I'm not an erotic writer, but an explicit writer. When I do love scenes, I don't like to use a lot of flowery words, and I like to actually say what they're doing. And so, it was kind of I guess with a preacher and a prostitute, that was a little too risque for them back then. Chelly Reed says, do you listen to the audiobook versions of your novels? And if you do you think they capture your voice? And also, do you work with the narrators at all? You know, it embarrasses the crud out of me to hear those books said out loud. The first time, I think it was Berkeley was the first one who sent me narrator voices to choose from, and I turned it on. I think my husband was with me, and I got a beet red, and I made him leave the room so that I could try to listen to it. And it was like nothing. It was like the beginning lines of a book, and it embarrassed me half to death. To me, books are to be read, not heard. I guess I'm too old school. You know, in my mid-50s, it just doesn't seem right to be hearing them out loud. So, no, I don't listen to them. I was going to try to listen to an audiobook, not my own, but just an audiobook while I did the treadmill. But then I started just reading on my iPad, and that, you can change pages on your iPad easily enough that I didn't need it to be audio. I really don't think I'd like audio. But as far as working with the narrators, they often give me a choice of which narrator to pick. They just all sound embarrassing to me, so I don't know. I generally just tell my agent to help me out and tell me which is the most popular. I think I'm just too old school. I still really like holding a book. Except when I'm on my treadmill, I really like to just hold a book and feel the pages and do it old school. So, let's see. Rhonda Leary says, do you read blogs reviews? I read reviews everywhere. It cracks me up. I share. If I see a really good review, I'll share it. And if I see a review that's not a complimentary review, I don't share that. I read it. I'm okay with it. Everybody's got their own opinion, but a blog reviewer wrote me the other day, kind of irate, and said, you share everybody's reviews but mine. Well, she hated my book. Why would I want to share her review? Yeah, I'm going to go tell all my readers how you hated my book. It just seemed bizarre that she would be offended by that. So, yeah, if you write a review and you like the book, odds are if I see it, I'll share it. If you didn't like it, I don't care. It's okay that you didn't like it, but don't expect me to go and share that with everybody. I'm not going to try and talk people into not liking my book. Let's see. It just jumped here. Novel Strumpet says, how many books did you try before finding your voice? I wrote over 10 books before I sold, over a 5-year period, and completed over 10 books before I sold my first book. So I don't know if that means it took me that long to find my voice, or it took me that long to smooth things out enough to where it made enough sense, to where it was good enough. The first book, when I reread it, the first one that got published, to me is horrible. So I'm surprised now that it got bought and published. I'm glad it did, because this is an awfully fun gig, but I'm surprised that Harlequin took a chance on me way back then. So I think I more or less taught myself to write by writing. You see a lot of new writers, and they want to sell on proposal, which means you write anywhere from 1 to 3 chapters, and that's what you sell on. And to me, that's kind of it's a nonsense argument. If you don't love the book enough to finish it, don't start it. And don't start it unless you plan to finish it. And a lot of times when you start a book, it's not the same book by the time you get to the end, because the characters have told you new things or different things, and you've tweaked the beginning. So it's only in your best interest to finish a book to sell it. And each time you finish a book, it teaches you a little bit more about your own voice and about writing. So I don't have such obviously that's not how I sell now. I mean, I just kind of get 4-book contracts, and then I write the books. But that's, I've worked to get to that stage. So before that, I don't think it's as big a deal to sell on a proposal. I think you do yourself a disservice by pushing. If you start a book and it doesn't sell on proposal, you push it aside, you start another one. Don't start it unless you're really determined to finish it. That's, just my advice. Anna Patterson said, how do you choose what to write about next? Usually it kind of chooses for me. When I was writing this particular series, I started out with Logan, and I knew Logan would have a buddy because it was necessary in the initial scenes. So I kind of knew as soon as Reese showed up on the page, Reese was going to be the second book. As soon as Rowdy showed up on the page, I knew Rowdy would be the third book, and as soon as Dash showed up, I knew he would be the fourth. So they kind of decide those things for me. You know, a lot of people ask me, like with the Buckhorn Brothers, it goes Sawyer, Morgan, Gabe, Jordan, and if we had gone in order of age, Jordan's would have been before Gabe's. But that's just not how they wanted it. Gabe insisted on being the third, and Jordan insisted on being the fourth. So I just kind of let my writers, my characters have their way and just do what they want. Nikki Grice says, thank you so much for coming to do this chat. It's great to have this kind of intimate setting for a chat with a great author. Well, thank you. It's fun for me too. Like I said, I wish it's kind of awkward for me. I feel very, I don't know. I feel like I'm being ridiculous here, having a mouse left-handed, and I'll probably watch this later and go, why did I do this and why did I do that? So I hope I'm not looking too ridiculous here, trying to get by with it. Minna DeCaro says, the Watson Brothers is in my to-be read list now. I love a male lead with a strong personality. That's Sam. I hope after you read it, let me know what you thought about Sam with his My House, My Rules, okay? I thought he was just one of my all-time favorites ever. I'm glad I talked you into it. Okay, let's see here. Christine, oh, I wish I had sound so you could tell me how to say that. Arcadia Cano says, who do you enjoy reading? What is your all-time favorite book? Well, as I said earlier, I really, really like Jill Shalvis and Aaron McCarthy, and I still like my original favorites like Jane Ann Krentz and Amanda Quick, same person, just, you know, contemporary and historical. Catherine Coulter, Julie Garwood. One of my all-time favorite books ever would be Jane Ann Krentz's Perfect Partners. And if you've never read it, you need to, and you need to remember the line, good news, she doesn't need therapy. And when you read it in the book, you'll be laughing out loud. Catherine Coulter's Sherbrooke Bride series, you know, the original three, just fabulous work. Julie Garwood's Bride and Lion's Lady, two of my all-time favorites. Joanna Lindsay's The Mallorys, you know, Anthony and James Mallory, some of my all-time favorites. Katie McGarry, now that I've read her, when I say Pushing the Limits and Dare You To, just absolute. I can't imagine anybody reading those books and not being blown away by them. Just really, really phenomenal writing. So if you haven't tried her, give her a try. And Jill Shalvis she's one of the funniest writers out there, and she writes these really lovable, far more contemporary, I think, than my characters. There's a lot of texting and instant messaging and Facebooking stuff going on in her books, and it just cracked me up when I read it. I thought, I've never thought about putting that in my books. I probably will now that I've been reading her. Maybe it'll you know, bring a little more awareness to me about it. But I had never thought about that. It's hilarious. And Erin McCarthy, who's a very, very sexy writer, her race car series is really good. So if you haven't tried any of them, that would be recommendations from me. Let's see, Teresa Redding says, wow, that is quite a pace. Do different genres command a different pace? I think we're talking about the writing pace. Are we talking about the writing pace, Teresa? I really don't know with different genres how they work. And I know some authors can only do one book a year. Some can do one book and one novella. It seems to be a good mix for me to have 2 single titles and 2 novellas. And one of the novellas that I do is always a benefit book for charity, which means that all the proceeds from the book go to a local charity. I've done them for the Battered Women's Shelter in my area, and for the Conductive Learning Center, which is a special school for kids with spina bifida and cerebral palsy, and for the One Way Farm, which is a favorite place for me to donate. It's a home for abused and abandoned children, which breaks my heart because such a place should not be necessary. And then the AAF is also a favorite. That's the Animal Adoption Foundation, and they're a no-kill animal shelter right here in my neighborhood. And every year I can see how they've added on and the new things they've done, and the more animals they're taking in, and they're opening a clinic now where they can. We have a terrible feral cat population here in my area, and they're going to be doing spade neutering of cats for either free or really reduced rate here in my area. So they do really, really good work. So the benefit book that comes out in June benefits the AAF. And then if you guys are unfamiliar with the reader-author get-together that we do every year, run largely by volunteers, We take all of our raffle money each year and we donate it to the One Way Farm, and it's substantial. How much did we donate there last year, Alan?
$12,000.
It was $12,000 we were able to donate to them last year from our raffles. So we try to, each year we at the get together each year we have a book where the proceeds from the book go to the AAF. A portion of the proceeds from the book fair go to the Conductive Learning Center, and all of our raffle money goes to the One Way Farm. So really, really good local charities. Let's see, Eugene Wu said, have you finished every book that you started? Since publishing I have. Now, when I first started writing, the first 2 books I wrote longhand in pencil on paper, because I didn't have a typewriter back then they didn't have computers very much, and I didn't have a typewriter either. And so even though they were finished, I wouldn't say that they were polished up, because it was just too difficult to do with a number 2 pencil. But for the most part, yeah, I've finished every book I've ever started. I don't really, I'm very driven, I'm a very motivated person, so if I start a book, I really, really want to finish it. Now, of the 10 that I wrote before selling, I think I've got 6 that never sold that are on a shelf in the closet, and they're terrible. I know readers are always very kind and say I would read it, but it sucks. You wouldn't want to read them. So, but since selling, yeah, I've definitely finished every book I've ever started. C. Shu 115 says, what is your favorite part of being a best-selling writer? Money's kind of nice. That's always fun, but I think the freedom to get to be a writer, I've got a broken arm and I can still sit here and talk to you guys, and I don't have to explain I kind of just wrote my editor and agent and told them what happened, and they sent me flowers and told me to get well, so I don't have that pressure of having to go in and punch a time clock and worry about missing work. And I do worry. I worry about deadlines, and I worry about you guys looking forward to a book that may be a month late now because of this, but I don't have the pressure of someone who gets a paycheck each week, and I realize that, and I feel extremely blessed because of it. Overall, I just love writing. I like creating books. I sit down here in my office, and I laugh at stuff the characters do, and I cry with them sometimes, and I get mad and I type more furiously when they're doing things they shouldn't be doing, or if they've got themselves in a pickle, and I just think it's a whole lot of fun. I feel so incredibly lucky to get to do this. Like I said, my husband and I've had kind of a blessed life. I shouldn't keep saying I'll knock on wood, because I'll jinx us here now, but it's been a fun ride. Let's see here. Shelley Reed says, have you ever been recognized by fans when you are out and about? I have a few times, not real often. Every so often you'll see people going, and they're pointing. And almost always it's when I'm in Walmart looking my worst. When you run out to Walmart, or you're trying to sneak to the movies and you go into Walmart to buy candy to smuggle into the movie because you don't want to pay the price the movie charges for the candy. We always get popcorn and pop, but $3 for a candy bar in there is nuts. And I've been recognized that way a few times, but not a lot. Usually if I am, it's because I'm at a place where they expect writers to be, a writers conference or something like that. So it's only happened a few times. Luckily, I don't know how movie stars that get recognized all the time. You'd be afraid to do this to your nose. Somebody take a picture. It would be terrible. Are any of your older books going to come out in ebooks? That's from Rhonda Laney, and Rhonda, I've asked my agent about this, and she says they're trying. I started out with Harlequin, and then I was with Kensington, and then I was with Berkeley, and then back to Harlequin. I think that's right. And I did a couple of novellas for St. Martin's. So all of those places, it's not a matter of just working with one publisher. All of those places, to my knowledge, are working to get all of the earlier books produced into digital books. But it's a slow process, because I have a really extensive backlist. I think I have 80 books, Alan?
Somewhere near there.
Yeah, 80 or more titles that they're having to work with different publishers to get ready, and so it's a painstaking process, and it takes a little while. I know they want to, because it's more money for them. Ebooks are such a popular thing, but it takes a little while to get it done. So I know if you go to Amazon and you want something in a Kindle and you click on that little, I would like this in a Kindle, I think it urges Kindle to get it done. I don't know about all the other e-publishers. So let's see. BookTrib says we only have a few minutes left before we wrap up, and Lori will announce the winners of the Lori Foster Favorite Things goodie bag and of the free copies of Bear It All. Let's see. Nikki Grice says, as a teacher, I'd love to know if any of your teachers ever influenced you positively or negatively. You know, I have great respect for teachers, but I was such a backward student. I was an extreme introvert that I imagine my teachers probably just thought I was weird and I didn't really know what to do with me. I was extremely shy. So, you know, I hated school. I just wanted out. I was like that atypical student that didn't really fit in. I was always known as Monica's little sister or Alan's girlfriend, and then, you know, just wanted out of there. I didn't have a good time in school. So I can't say that any of them influenced me positively or negatively. So let's see, Val Pearson says, do you get a choice of what your covers will look like, or does the publisher choose for you? On reissues, I guess I could make a stink if I didn't like something, but I don't. On single titles, I get cover approval. But I think they've done a bang-up job. Harlequin, I love the Men of Honor covers, especially When You Dare. Oh, hottest cover ever. And I really, really love my covers for this particular series. I should have had Bear It All sitting here, but I don't. But I love that cover. I think they did a great job. He looks like Reese to me. And Rowdy's cover is just phenomenal. I really, really like it too. So, you know, I had no complaints with it. I really am not crazy about the reissue covers, but, you know, it's not anything to have a fuss about. Anna DeCaro says, do you find social media to be helpful or distracting for an author? Oh, I love it. I love hanging out on Facebook and Twitter, and I think it's great. You guys are phenomenal and helping to spread the word. Me with this stupid arm, I've been thrilled. I get on Twitter and I see so many people sharing posts about the book coming out. I think I've put one thing on Facebook and then it's been shared a gazillion times. So I think it's awesome. Plus, when I'm not laid up like this, I love getting up in the morning when I'm having my coffee and visiting you guys on Facebook before I start writing. You know, just seeing what's going on and giving away a T-shirt or something. So I really enjoy it. So I thank all of you who visit with me on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you. And Goodreads too. I like Goodreads also. Christine said, thanks for chatting with us today, Lori. Have you always wanted to be a writer? If you were not a writer, what would you be? Oh, and her name is Italian. Oh, really nice. You know, I didn't always want to be a writer. I didn't want to be a reader. So I say it wasn't until I was in my 30s and had 3 kids that my sister brought me over romance novels, and I kind of fell in love and decided I wanted to be not only a reader but a writer. So, I mean, it all kind of happened at one time for me. But other than that, it's funny because we just had the question about teaching. I always kind of wanted to be a teacher. I just thought there had to be a really good way to reach kids and allow kids to be individuals while also teaching them that everything in life isn't fair and that sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. So, you know, maybe if I hadn't hated school so much, you know, and if I hadn't lucked out so much with writing, maybe I would have gone to college and been a teacher. My middle son is a teacher over in South Korea teaching English, and I'm so proud of him. He does, he's married now to Hannah, who we adore, who's a Korean girl, and they'll be home the end of July for a visit. I'm really looking forward to it. And I just think it's really cool that he's a teacher teaching little Korean kids. Very fun. Very proud of him. Let's see, Chelly says, where have you traveled? Where have you gone that was your favorite? Well, South Korea to visit my son. That was just phenomenal. I went to the wedding there. That was really awesome. Canada. I haven't really traveled other than the U.S. You know, Canada and South Korea now. Now my middle son, he's traveled all over. He's got wanderlust. But that's not me. I like any place where it's warm and I'm near water. Val Pearson says, I just want to say thanks for chatting with us today. You have a wonderful sense of humor and have made me chuckle quite a few times today. Now, Val, you know you were laughing at how ridiculous I look, trying to mouse with my left hand and my broken wing. But thank you. Okay, BookTrib says, wow, what a great chat. Thanks to everyone for submitting such great questions. But don't leave yet, guys, because we're going to be pulling some names here very soon. So I think we got like 15 seconds left and they'll have names. Okay, we got a drum roll. See, novel strumpet. You win the Favorite Things goodie bag. Awesome. You get Timothy Oliphant in there. If you haven't already seen that movie, watch it and then let me know what you think. It's pretty awesome. And the official winners of Bear It All, Shelley Reeds, Christine Archidiacono, I'm sorry, I've butchered your name every time I've said it, and Nikki Grice, Val Pearson, Tessa99, and Anna Patterson. So you guys all get a book. Thank you so much. I hope you guys like it. Passion for Fiction said, thanks so much for taking the time. Shelley said, best chat ever. Oh, thank you, Shelley. You make me feel so much better about being wounded down here. Mackenzie said, great chat. Thank you, Grossman. Thank you. You guys are all very kind. Thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate it. Those who won the books, when you read it, let me know what you think. Hope you enjoy it. Novel Strumpet, yay. Yeah, I'm pretty excited too. Oh, and you do love Timothy Oliphant. Oh, good. Awesome. Justified, I know. Is it the best show ever? It's really good. Anybody that hasn't seen Justified, rent it. Really good. Okay, thank you all. I really, really appreciate it. I'm always open to email. I might be slow to answer now. I can do it on Siri, but it takes me a little while. But still, if you read Bear It All and you enjoy it, I'd love to hear from you. Said if you're one of the lucky winners, be sure you send your email address and mailing information to BookTrib@booktrib.com. Okay? That's the only way you'll be able to claim that prize. You're welcome, Val. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, thanks everyone. I'll let you go now. Bye-bye.